Hey guys, it's David. Real quick before we get into today's story, I just want to remind everybody that these stories are written by AI and that I do not own them or claim to have created them. I use ChatGPT to write these stories so that way I can tell y'all stories without having to worry about copyright infringement. But with that, if you do enjoy today's story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so I know which stories y'all like so I can do more of what y'all enjoy. If you have any recommendations or requests, you can comment them down below and I'll try to get to as many as I can. And with that, I hope you enjoy today's story. The Harvest Feast. In the autumn of 1621, the Calderwood family prepared for their first harvest in the New World. They had arrived the previous winter, part of a group of settlers seeking religious freedom and a chance to build new lives in the untamed wilderness of Plymouth Colony. But the journey had been grueling, and the land they had found was harsher than they had imagined. The Calderwoods had come from Yorkshire, England, farmers accustomed to rich soil and gentle rain. Here, the earth was rocky, the seasons brutal, and survival uncertain. Thomas Calderwood, the family's patriarch, bore the weight of their struggles on his broad shoulders. His wife Margaret was a steady presence, her quiet resilience holding the family together. Their two children, James, 12, and Hannah, 8, had grown thin over the long, hungry winter, but had survived when many of their neighbors hadn't. That first winter had taken half of the settlers. Disease and starvation claimed lives in equal measure, and the Calderwoods had nearly given up hope. But spring had brought help. The Wampanoag people, led by a man named Squanto, taught the settlers how to plant corn, fish in the rivers, and gather native plants for food. Now, as the leaves turned crimson, the settlers prepared to celebrate their first successful harvest, a time of gratitude, reflection, and a hope for the future. The air was crisp and smelled of smoke from the cooking fires as the settlers worked together to prepare for a great feast. The women baked bread and roasted venison, while the men prepared wild fowl and fish. The children gathered berries and nuts from the woods, their laughter ringing out through the village. Margaret Calderwood stirred a pot of stew over the fire, her hands red and chapped from the cold. She glanced at Hannah, who was carefully peeling apples for a pie. "Mind your fingers," Margaret warned gently. "I am, Mother," Hannah replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was determined to help, eager to prove she wasn't too young to contribute. Nearby, Thomas and James returned from the woods, their arms laden with firewood. Thomas's face was flushed from the exertion, but his eyes were bright. "The table's nearly ready," he said. "Let's make it a feast to remember." The Calderwoods worked late into the afternoon, their spirits lifted by the prospect of sharing a meal with their neighbors and the Wampanoag people. It wasn't just about food. It was about coming together after months of hardship, honoring those they had lost, and giving thanks for the help they had received. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the villagers and their Wampanoag allies gathered around long wooden tables sat beneath the open sky. The tables were piled high with roasted meats, cornbread, fish, and vegetables, a bounty unimaginable just months ago. Lanterns flickered in the cool evening air, casting warm light over the crowd. Thomas Calderwood stood and raised his mug of cider. "Friends," he began, his voice steady but full of emotion, "we have survived a long and trying year. Many of us here have lost loved ones, but we have also gained much: friendship, knowledge, and hope. Tonight we give thanks for the harvest, for our neighbors who have guided us, and for the strength to carry on." The crowd murmured in agreement, lifting their mugs in a toast. Squanto, seated among the settlers, nodded solemnly. He spoke next, his voice clear and deliberate. "The earth provides when it is cared for, and the Creator watches over those who share in his bounty. Let this meal remind us that we are stronger together. The feast began, laughter and conversation filling the night. For a few hours, the worries of the past and the uncertainty of the future faded away. Children played near the fires, their cheeks rosy from the cold, while the adults shared stories and toasted their survival. After the meal, Thomas and Margaret sat together near the fire, watching their children play with the other young ones. Thomas held Margaret's hand, his grip firm but gentle. "Do you think we'll make it, Maggie?" he asked quietly. Margaret looked at him, her face soft in the firelight. "We've come this far. We've endured the worst, and now we have hope. I think we'll make it." Thomas nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "It's strange, isn't it, to sit here and feel grateful after everything." Margaret leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's why it matters. Gratitude doesn't ease the hardships, but it gives us the strength to face them." As the night wore on, the gathering began to disperse. The Calderwoods returned to their small home, their bellies full and their hearts lighter. Before bed, Thomas knelt by the hearth with James and Hannah. "Let's remember those who've helped us get here," he said, "and promise to help those who come after us." James nodded solemnly. "I'll work harder next year. I'll help with the fields." "And I'll bake better bread," Hannah said, giggling. Thomas laughed, pulling his children close. "That's all I can ask." The family fell asleep that night under the glow of the stars, the scent of the harvest feast lingering in the air. They didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, they felt prepared to face it together. Years later, when the Calderwoods' descendants gathered for Thanksgiving, they would tell the story of the first feast in Silver Hollow. They would speak of the hardships their ancestors endured, the kindness of the Wampanoag people, and the importance of gratitude in even the darkest times. As they sat down to their own feast, they would remember the simple truth that had carried the Calderwoods through. Gratitude is not just about what we have, but about the connections we build, the lessons we learn, and the hope we carry forward. Hey guys, it's David. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you liked today's story. If you did, again, let me know by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It really helps me out. And with that, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.